county that it has to be filed in, the judge decides to retire. A whole new staff is brought in once the new judge is appointed. So we're now a month or two behind where we were planning on closing. The other buyers were selling their home out of state and relocating, so now they have nowhere to go.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Kevin C. McIntosh, and welcome to The Closing Table. Per usual, we have another guest on the show who's ready to share his top insights and expertise within his market. We want to welcome Darien Cruz to The Closing Table. What's going on, Darien?
Hey, Kevin, thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Man, thank you, first and foremost, for accepting our invitation to be here and taking time out your very busy schedule. Always like to acknowledge that. So let's talk about real estate, but let's talk about the real estate professional first. All right. I just want to see who you are as a human being. So if you can, in 60 seconds or less, Darien, tell us who you are outside of real estate.
Yeah, that's a lot for a whole human being, but I'll try. So, my name is Darien Cruz. I grew up in North Carolina. I was born in New York. My parents moved here when I was very young, a baby. So I grew up in Nash County, Red Oak area. It's about an hour east of Raleigh, North Carolina. Worked in a couple different professions. Was in the hospitality industry when I was younger, healthcare field for many years before getting into real estate. I now live in the Triangle area, which is Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area, sort of South Wake County, a little area called Holly Springs, Wave Arena. That's where I'm at now. That's where I do most of my business, but I still refer out to other parts of the country and even internationally with some of my other partners that I work with.
Nice. North Carolina. I love that. New territory for us here on the closing table. So we're definitely going to explore that. But before we even get into your market, let's talk about your real estate business, right? Your operation. So I want you to just describe it for me and our audience. But before we even, well, not before, but when you are talking about it, hit on a few different key points if you can. How long you've been licensed, what you would consider your specialty or niche, and or any notable achievements.
Sure. So I was licensed in 2019. That's when I made a massive career change, completely changed paths, decided to get into real estate. I'm definitely glad I did. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a beautiful experience. I've met some great people, worked with great people. I focus on the residential market. Although it's the same license to do commercial or property management, that's where I focus. Initially, The majority of my clients were a lot of first-time home buyers. A lot of my friends starting families, buying their first house. Ended up helping quite a few of them. It got a little more listing heavy as time went on, so I do have a lot of listings as well. But residential market, both in Raleigh and in the surrounding areas.
Good. See, you said so since 2019, so we're about 4 years in as of right now, pretty much. So I think you're in that sweet spot of the real estate agent cycle that I hear about so often, between like that 3 to 5. Well, actually between like the first year and the third year, it's usually like you're just out lead generation. You're looking out, you're going out trying to get clients, and you're doing everything to try to get as many leads as possible. But then once you get to that 3 to 5 year mark, it's like if you put it in work good, a lot of those older clients are coming back around, purchasing their second home, or they're referring other people. So that's what it seems like you're at pretty much at that stage in your career. So I love to hear it in real time, man.
That is true. Yeah, I've definitely had the privilege of working with a few previous clients again. We saw such a change in the market really over the past 3 years that some of them were really able to capitalize on those investments and sell their homes, buy other homes. Some bought just additional investment homes, so it's been awesome to be able to do that. And it's nice when you see those relationships that you develop turn into long-standing relationships, and that's the importance of staying in touch with everyone.
Yeah, I agree. Nice, man. Okay, so let's get into your market, because I've never been to North Carolina, not that I can recall, specifically even Raleigh in that Triangle area. So you called it the Triangle and everything. So I want you to describe your market. First, geographically, Get into the triangle, the details. What's your area known for? Notable landmarks, attractions, things to do. Then get into some of the economics, statistical data, price points, days on the market, et cetera, please.
Sure. So our market is one of the fastest growing markets in the country. It's been consistently in the top 10, probably definitely at least since I've been in the business. Top 3 in quite a few studies. I think Forbes had it at number 2 in one of their recent polls. So it's an area that a lot of people are moving into. We have a lot of medical and tech industry jobs in our community. So that obviously brings a lot of folks in. There's an area called RTP, which is a Research Triangle Park. That houses, there's a Google facility there. Apple is actually now expanding into our area as well. That's supposed to bring, over 2,000 jobs and possibly create an additional 20,000 jobs, to service those new folks that are going to be moving in. So it is definitely a growing area. Raleigh itself, the city, I like it. I love that city. I think it has a really cool vibe. There's a lot of people make comparisons to Atlanta or Austin, Texas in terms of its growth pattern. And also it's just sort of the type of community. It's a college town. You have NC State, and within 15 minutes, you also have, 25 minutes, UNC, Duke.
Okay.
There's so many universities within this close range that feeds a lot of youth into the community as well. So you're going to have a lot of restaurants, a lot of nightlife, a lot of breweries. So it's a great place to just hang out for the weekend. But around the outskirts, there are a ton of suburbs that are just blowing up right now. So a lot of young families, retirees also move to this area. The weather's pretty moderate. We don't have really extreme weather patterns, so not these intense winters. Not quite as hot as Florida, but we've got the beach 2 hours away. We can go to the beach for the day. You can drive in the other direction west and be in the mountains for the day. You can go skiing or snowboarding and do all those things, go hiking. So you have a little bit of everything, which makes it great. We really love it. As far as the pricing, pricing did jump up quite a bit in the past 3 years. We saw values jump when interest rates came down. Buyers just poured into the market. And so that obviously drove up the pricing. We definitely saw the effects of that. But even then, we are really priced below most markets of similar size, most metropolitan areas of similar size. So our median home price was right around $450,000, which is great for, these are for, like single family homes and townhomes, but the average, the median price sits around there. The market center that I work with is out of Apex, North Carolina. It's Keller Williams Legacy out of Apex. Our median is probably closer to around 600. And that's starting to hurt my feelings a little bit. That's starting to hit a little hard, but there are plenty of homes below that median that are available in surrounding areas. I have had clients recently close in the low 300s, less than an hour away in Nash County, in the 200s, even sub 200 in some cases for single family homes. So there are some amazing investments and homes to be had even at lower prices in our market.
Interesting. Thank you for providing all that insight. As someone, like I said, who's never been to that area, you kind of painted the picture for me as far as the weather, like the things where you can do that's in the area. So I never knew that about it. 2 hours from the beach, a driving range from the mountains, also moderate weather. It definitely seems like a great place to raise a family. I mean, not even getting into the school district. I mean, do you have any information on the school district? How are the schools performing in that area? I mean, not just the colleges, but actual grade level.
Yeah, so there's we have to be a little bit careful. I don't want to criticize or glamorize the school systems, but there are plenty of good resources you can go because there are so many schools in our school districts, and they are constantly redistricting. So it would really depend on what the specific address you have is in terms of going and looking up and seeing what the stats are for those schools and the ratings. And we have had so many changes in terms of where kids are assigned to go to school that it's hard to comment without knowing a specific address, which is kind of crazy. But in general, people seem very happy with the schools. Kids are performing well. Graduation rates, they're high. And we have so many in-state universities that a lot of people move to the state just so that their children can pay in-state university, costs and pricing
Tuition, yeah.
at these, really well-renowned schools. So
Yeah.
that is
Yeah, I
certainly
can
a
see
motivating factor. If you got high school students, get over here quick.
Correct. Yep. Makes a great
Call
point
me.
right there. Okay. Thank you. So your background in the hospitality and healthcare industries, quite unique for a real estate professional. But can you share a story where your expertise in these fields providing an unexpected advantage whenever you are assisting a client with their real estate needs?
Sure. Yeah. There's a couple in terms of the hospitality industry. It's a service industry, so you're not just selling a hotel room or an event space. It really is about the entire experience, and that's something that I've really tried to apply to real estate. We're going to buy a house. This is one of the most stressful things you will do in your entire life, whether it's buying or selling. It's going to be stressful on you personally, on your personal life. Financially, it's the largest commitment you'll probably make also in your entire life. So my goal is to try and make this as easy and as pleasant as possible. I want, when we are finished, for you to say that, oh, that was awesome. That went well. I'm glad I worked with Darien. I'm going to tell my friends about him. So that's my goal. That service side of having worked in hospitality has definitely helped me in that regard. In terms of the healthcare industry, I was really fortunate with the company that I worked with. Both of the owners that ran that company were nurses, which is a little bit rare, actually, believe it or not, in these in-home care companies where you're taking care of elderly, children with special needs. Mm-hmm. And they were just incredibly ethical. So that approach, and because their background was working as caregivers, they were, working in hospitals, working in the mental health field. They weren't asking anything of their staff that they had not done themselves or been willing to do themselves. Right. And that really helped me in terms of how I view approaching business. I never want to ask something of someone else that I wouldn't be willing to do. I always want to put the interest of my clients first, to do everything in an ethical way. And, that does affect how you approach real estate, because although I'm representing the interest of my clients, I want to get them everything I can possibly get them to set them up as well as I can, but not to the point where I would do something dishonest or unethical towards the opposite party either. And it's looking for those win-win solutions really makes it a much smoother process, and everyone tends to be happier at the end of the closing.
No, absolutely. As long as everybody can walk away benefiting, then it's a great transaction if you ask me. I love how you made some of the comparisons and brought some of the things that you learned from those two fields into real estate. Hospitality being the fact that you say it's about the experience. It's about the overall service. Like, you could provide a clean room, but what about the housekeeping? What about, if I need to get service from the front desk type, that it captures the entire experience. So great point with that. And then even with the hospitals, just talking about the ethics of being a genuine human being who cares for other human beings. I mean, being in the healthcare field, that's one of the purest forms of taking care of another human, taking care of their health. So you have to have some type of ethics behind that. So I love the comparison that you made. It hasn't been made before, but thank you for that insight also. I want to talk about you dealing with some type of conflict now. You seem like a great guy, Darien, but we all have to hit these bumps in the road, right? So can you recount a time where you had to mediate conflict either between neighbors while you're doing a sale or between buyers and sellers possibly? And can you talk about what you did to actually come to a resolution and make all parties positive at the end?
Sure. I've been really fortunate with a lot of my buyers and sellers. Generally, it's been with reasonable people. It hasn't been that bad. Good. But there have been some issues that came up unexpectedly. Not always because of malice or somebody trying to take advantage of the situation. It's just things happen. We've had a home go under contract, and while it's under contract, a huge leak, happened in the house. A huge leak. Caused some damage. So that was a serious problem. The home was under contract. We'd already negotiated repairs, and this was now an additional expense that was unexpected. The seller, just felt like it was unfair to them in a way because, they didn't do anything to cause that. They weren't even living in the home at the time. The home was vacant. But essentially, it is still their responsibility because it's their house, so it had to be repaired. The buyer said, hey, we've negotiated our repairs already. You've decided what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, but you've got to fix that before we move in. And they're absolutely right. It had to be fixed. You have to provide the home in the condition, under which you've agreed to provide it in. And it was difficult because I knew the financial situation of the sellers in that case. And they just did not have the funds initially to do that. And it's not that they weren't willing to or they weren't ethical. They financially couldn't do it. In that situation, thankfully, I have some great vendors that I work with that I reached out to. And we worked it out where I was able to cover that expense up front. Normally, I would not recommend doing that. I did know these clients really well, but I was able to cover it up front. Ideally, I'd like to get it done at the closing table. But also that vendor, he had bills to pay too. So we worked it out. I was reimbursed at the closing table, and an invoice was done. Everybody was happy, and it didn't have to come out of their pocket up front. But they were grateful. The buyer was happy. We were able to resolve it in a way that was ethical, and everyone got what they needed at the end of the day.
Oh my goodness! Did you just say you basically paid for their whatever their leak was at the time?
I did. I don't recommend doing that in general. I knew it's a risk because that deal could fall through, and of course I could be out. So that's not something generally I would recommend doing. Normally, I would negotiate having it done and have the vendor that's handling that paid at the closing table. We were on a huge time crunch, though. In order to get it closed, it was just one of those things where I felt it was a calculated risk, and I was willing to do it. So we did it. But generally, don't do that.
I pointed that out because I want any and everybody of our audience listening to understand that is an example of going above and beyond. Like, that is not normal. That is not normal. You did that to satisfy both parties in the end, too, just to make sure that transaction is taken care of. I gotta applaud you for that, man. So I just wanted you to reiterate that, to say it again, because like I said, that's not normal at all. So this is an example of an agent doing, going above and beyond. Love to hear that. Briefly, if you don't mind, I saw something that I want to talk about. You and your wife dedicate a significant amount of your free time to helping various language communities in the Raleigh area.
We do.
Could you tell us about a particularly rewarding experience where your language skills and community engagement translated into a significant positive impact on someone's life?
Sure. That's been a huge privilege for us. It's something we enjoy doing. For years, I also speak Spanish. So, my background, my family is originally from Puerto Rico, my grandparents. Both my parents were raised in New York. I grew up in an English-speaking household, but in my teens, we did start seeing a lot of Spanish-speaking people move to our area, and that just wasn't the case previously in North Carolina. Now there's a huge community, so we concentrated on really learning the language, and engaging in activities to help people in the community, with their family lives, just how to live a happier life, providing free Bible classes, those sort of things, and that was really rewarding. We've had a lot of great experiences, made lifelong friends doing that. A few years ago, we decided to learn another language. We had a few that we were considering doing. I did not think we would end up learning Russian, but that's where it ended up going. That's a community that's growing a lot in our area. So we ended up learning the Russian language, which is not an easy language, but it's been really interesting. With everything that's going on in the world now too, we have an influx of not just folks from Russia, but also surrounding countries that may speak Russian as well. A lot of Ukrainians have also come. I don't speak Ukrainian. I'd love to learn. That's something I definitely would like to do at some point. Quite a few are bilingual and also understand Russian, so we are able to communicate with a lot of them as well in that language. And we have a lot of friends here that speak, Ukrainian, Russian, other Slavic languages as well. So there is a nice community there that we've been able to get involved with. And to see so many of them be able to come, in some cases, start new lives here, major changes in their lives, especially with what's going on with the conflict there. It's beautiful to see how a lot of them have been able to acclimate to our area and really embrace it. And we've been happy to help out in any way that we can.
Good, man. Good to hear, man. I just saw that you did that. You and your wife, take your time to do that good deed, and I just want to, briefly speak on it. But love to hear.
My wife Angie does way more good deeds than me in general. Just she's the best.
Give you that push, yeah.
I'm just trying to catch up with her. She's the best.
Yeah. But man, learning the different languages, you almost make it seem easy because most cases you hear it's easier to learn languages in your infancy stages and
For
things,
sure.
while you're still developing language overall. But you're learning it in your teens and your adult life, and I gotta applaud you, man, because that's not easy at all. You say Russian isn't easy, but learning a new language in general is not easy. So
it's
great work because that opens up your audience and your client base also. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
and that has been reflected in my business. I have had the opportunity to work with a lot of Spanish-speaking clients, some Russian-speaking clients as well. So that's been really cool. It's kept me on my toes. I thought I was fluent in Spanish, and then I realized there's so many legal terms and real estate terms that I had to learn. So it's like, I need to go back and brush up on that. But it's been a cool experience for sure.
I feel it, yeah. And you also just gave us some insight into the area also, just basically letting us know there's a mixture of different cultures there. It seems like a melting pot of different languages within that Raleigh area. So great.
Definitely.
Great to hear about
French,
that, man.
Italian, Portuguese. It is a huge melting pot in that terms. And it's great because now the food's a lot better. We've always killed it on Southern food. So the Southern food has always been on point. But now we've got all these other cuisines coming into. I like to eat. A lot of new restaurants opening up, so that's definitely a cool feature.
Love it. More different type of situations that you had to overcome. For an example, closing day. You have a time that you've experienced where the closing day, that's one of the situations we do not want to move. But have you had a situation where the closing day had to be pushed back? If so, describe the situation and what you learned from it.
Sure. I've had quite a few. Unfortunately, we generally don't want to move a closing date. Yeah. But things happen. Both on the buyer and seller side, I've had to move closing dates. So I'll give you kind of two of the wildest examples. We had one, and thankfully I'm really good friends with all parties involved, so it's been a good experience. They won't mind me telling the story. So we had one where I was representing the sellers. It actually closed earlier this year. In that case, the seller was an elderly man, and his wife. He had dementia that had set in, unfortunately. So he wasn't able to make really any of the decisions himself. His wife, totally of sound mind, she's fine, and the son was essentially his caretaker and guardian. But they all live out of state now. They used to live in North Carolina. They had moved out of state. So he had guardianship papers drawn up. All that was done properly. And we were moving forward with the sale. Unfortunately, that was not recorded in the courts of North Carolina, in our records here, for it to be recognized in order for us to close properly. So we told our attorney. Our attorney said, yeah, no problem. We can get that taken care of. We go and fill out the proper paperwork. Right when that happens, the county that it has to be filed in, the judge decides to retire. So the judge that would normally sign off on that. And there's a small, county courthouse. The judge retires. A whole new staff is brought in once the new judge is appointed. So we're now a month or two behind where we were planning on closing, which is a nightmare. The other buyers were selling their home out of state and relocating, so now they have nowhere to go. It was a wild process. I generally advise my clients not to allow possession before closing of the home if you're selling, just because you're bringing on so much liability if you let that person move into the home and they actually have possession of it before they've purchased it. Generally, I don't recommend that. I didn't recommend it in this case either, but as opposed to paying their rent continuously for the next few months, that was the route that the seller wanted to go. Thankfully, it worked out. Thankfully, that was okay. Everyone was honest in how that was handled. It was done. It took months before all this could be resolved. Whoa. We finally closed. Now everyone's happy. But the amount of patience that they had to have and that I had to have, and to keep everyone on board, there were numerous times where this deal could have just gone sideways. Yep. Both parties wanted to back out at different times because the stress level was just unbelievable. Thankfully everyone generally was very reasonable, super good people. Once again, there was no malintent on anyone's part, and we were able to get it done in an ethical way, get it done happily. And by the end, everyone was glad it was over and they had their money. The other party had the house, so it worked out. But it was a tough one. Another one that I've had recently is a buyer that I'm working with. Also really good friends of mine. We're currently under contract. This was a new construction home. Mm-hmm. It's not unheard of for new construction homes to have delays. Whether it's materials, happened a lot during COVID. Just because some parts and some components weren't available, due to that, they weren't getting delivered on time. In this case, the holdup has been a community well. So when you're in rural areas of North Carolina, this is only 25 minutes outside of the city of Raleigh, but this area is a little more rural. It's common to have private wells on a property. Because this is a development by a large builder, this particular community has community well. So there may be a well that serves multiple properties. Well, there's been some issues with permitting, things getting behind on that side that has held up closing. We're probably at about 3 months now. And that's really tough. And there's nothing we can do about it. They've got to get those permits. It has to be done properly. And they've got about 40 houses that are complete and ready for the buyers to move in that we just can't close on until this is done. So this is their house included. It's a beautiful home. They can't move into it yet. We've already sold their primary residence where they were living, expecting closing to happen sooner. So they're in sort of a temporary living situation, with friends and family until they can move into their new home. It's incredibly stressful. But they've been awesome. We know what the process is. I make sure that they're informed as far as what's going on, what's causing the delays. We get weekly follow-ups with the builder. And in those situations, what I've learned is communication is paramount. You just have to communicate. Mm-hmm. If you keep open those lines, it doesn't relieve the stress completely. And it doesn't, alleviate the fact that, it's going to be a while before you can move into your house. But at least you don't feel like anything's being hidden from you. Everything is in the open. Yeah. We know what's going on. We're following every step of the way. They know we're doing our due diligence for them to make sure they're taken care of. And that helps us at least get to a point where at the end, it'll work out. They'll be in their home. Everyone will be happy. And they will know exactly why it took us getting to that point and the steps that we're taking to finally make it done.
Yeah. Because in both of those examples that you provided, from what I heard, they were completely out of your control. There was nothing that you could do. You just had to wait on the process to pretty much process. But like you said, the best thing that you can do is just have open communication and honesty with your clients at that time. So I applaud you for that. That's the best thing you can do.
For sure.
Your belief in this quote, you said you believe in having, quote, the goals of a dreamer combined with the work ethic of a realist, end quote. Mm-hmm. Very intriguing. Let's talk about it. So could you share a personal or professional goal that exemplifies this philosophy, both your aspiration and your diligent work you put in to achieve it?
Sure. So, it definitely applies to both personal and professional life. I've probably always been accused of being a little bit of a dreamer. Even when I was a little kid, if you go back and look at my report cards, Darien's daydreaming during class. He's talking during class. Yeah. I was definitely that kid. Yeah. But I had good grades, though. So there was that. Okay. So it's one of those things where, it's fine if you have these big ideas. I'm a big idea guy, and not all of them are always attainable or reach or make sense or even wise. But I tend to have them. And if you have those sort of goals, reach for the stars. And then let's see how far you can get. Then it requires putting in the work. So the work ethic of a realist is really important because you can have the idea, but if you don't put the effort in to make that a realization, it's not going to happen. And that applies to anything in life, whether it's your personal relationships, your spiritual well-being, whether it's your professional life. You have to put in the effort to get to the goals that you want to reach. It's helped me with languages. My goal is to be able to speak this other language like a native speaker. Will I ever get there? I don't know. Maybe not. I may always have a little bit of an accent. I'll probably still make grammatical errors, but I'm going to do my best. So I'll work towards that. And if I aim that high, I'll probably come up short, but it'll probably be better than what people expected. And the same thing with my career. I have goals that I want to reach. I'm not there yet in any of them, really, where I want to be. But reaching for them has brought me to a point that actually exceeded maybe my own initial expectations of where it might go. So, yeah, I think that's just a good way to approach life in general and any goals that you have. Work towards them. And always aim a little farther than what you actually need to be at, and you'll probably get to the point you need to be at. There was it's kind of unrelated, but I remember seeing an interview a long time with it was Bruce Lee, I think, and he was talking about how whenever he would throw any sort of punch or any sort of strike, he always aimed an inch further than whatever the target was. And I thought that was really cool. That was really interesting because you can apply that to anywhere in life. If you want to get there, don't aim there. Aim past that.
Further than that. Oh, I love
Aim further
that.
down.
Ooh.
And then if you get even further, great, you're even happier. But at least you've made it to that target and with power.
Correct. Love that. That's all in tune with the old saying, shoot for the stars.
Yeah.
And even if you miss, you're still elevated. You're still in an elevated place than where you were initially. So I love that, man. You left us with a good quote right there, man. I want to ask you this last question that I feel like our audience could really benefit from, an audience of people who, are looking to own homes now. So knowing what you know now and the resources that are available specifically in your market, if you are an aspiring first-time home buyer, what approach would you take to owning your own home, your first home, excuse me?
Yeah. And there are a lot of people in that situation right now. The first thing I would do is call Darien Cruz. That's what I would recommend first.
Oh, yeah.
Call me.
Oh, yeah.
And once you called me, I can definitely help you get to the people that I know will be able to help you. But seriously, yeah, reach out to a realtor because they're going to have resources. They're going to know who can best position you to be able to realize that dream. There are lenders that we partner with that are aware of different financial programs available in the area. You'll be surprised at what some of them are, what some of the loan terms are. Right now, interest rates are a little bit higher. Well, they're double what they were actually 2 or 3 years ago. That was an all-time low. It may never get back to that point of 2 and 3%, but historically, it's not the highest it's ever been. The key is have your finances looked at. Don't be afraid to share your finances with these loan officers. They'll review things and work within what your true budget is, what your means are. Don't overextend yourself, but let's see what you can get, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. This is a wise investment generally. Real estate over time generally does go up in value. There can be dips and curves in the market. Sure, it can drop for a few years, but patience will get you to where this is a good investment generally. And sometimes it's even faster than you expect. But knowing that and going in, this doesn't necessarily have to be your forever home. You may decide, I can't buy my dream home right now based on what my finances are. I may not even find a home that I want to live in very long right now. But this can be a wise investment, and it can position you to buy what you want in the future. When I was a young man, I was advised to do that. I purchased my first home at a pretty young age. I was 24 when I purchased my first home. It was a little starter home. It was not a lot of money by anyone's standards. I liked it. I lived there for years. I kept that home for years. I didn't live in it. I ended up moving out and renting it out. So it became a source of income in that way. The tenant was essentially paying the mortgage on that home for me. Yeah. And I recently purchased another home just 2 months ago. And what helped me do that was the fact that I owned that other investment. I decided to, at this point, because the market had changed so much, sell that initial investment and funnel that money into a new one. And I plan on doing the same thing with the home I just purchased. It will most likely be a rental property in the future as I go and buy another primary home. Because it had been a few years since I purchased a primary, I wasn't living in that home. I was able to take advantage of some first-time home buyer benefits. So I used an FHA loan that only required 3.5% down. There were builder buy downs, and there you find these in some of these communities, where right now interest rates are 7-8%, above 8% in some cases. I was able to lock in a 30-year fixed loan at 5.5%, because I was aware of what these builders in different communities were offering, I could take advantage of that. I purposely bought in a community where the HOA did not have a rental cap. So I know that I can use this property as a rental. I also know I can't use it as an Airbnb. They don't allow that in that HOA. But I know what can and can't be done, and I can strategize based on that. So when you're working with a realtor that really knows the local market, knows what builders are doing, knows what the communities allow and don't allow, it's going to help you come up with a plan, both short-term and long-term. And that's how you want to look at it as a first-time home buyer. Does this meet my needs right now? Great. Does it meet all the dreams that I have in my perfect ideal home? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. But we can get there. How is this going to help you get there? So, that would be my recommendation.
No, I love that advice. Especially keeping in mind your first home is more than likely not going to be your forever home. It's more than likely not going to be your dream home, but it's a step in the right direction, and it's leverage for when you are ready to purchase your dream home or forever home. Well said. I don't want to step on that point, Darien. Thank you again so much for pulling up a chair to the closing table and being here and sharing your knowledge. At this point, if you have any last words and or want to tell people how to reach out to you, the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. It's been an awesome conversation. For anyone that wants to reach out to me, you can visit Darien Cruz, DariencRuz.kw.com. You can email me at dariencruz@gmail.com. And I'm all over social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you are, I'll be there. All right. But definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer or help in any way that I can.
Thank you again, sir. Make sure you reach out to Darien Cruz if you're in that Raleigh area, North Carolina. Appreciate it. And for our YouTube audience watching right now, do us both a favor if you got here and hit that like button, please. And thank you. Make sure you also share the content and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, any other podcast platforms, please do the same. Give us a like, 5-star rating, and subscribe for our latest content. Darien, I'd like to leave our audience with a question before they leave the chat to get their brains going. So I got something for you, audience. This is for you. Has a neighbor ever been a factor in your decision to buy or sell a home? And why? Tell us in the comments below. Besides that, we'll talk to you next time.